Woke up this morning into my car to start my day. First stop is my buyer, who 6 months ago walked away. When I arrive, he treats me like a commodity. Just give me a spec on his interconnect. He wants price and delivery. And if we're over $20, he tells me this business we're gonna lose. He's got us singing that old don't know value blues.
Welcome, everybody, to the ValueClarity podcast, where we talk about all things relating to customer perceived value, sales, marketing, product, everything. I have a really special guest today. Kak Varley has been in sales in a bunch of different roles for over 25 years, all the way from starting selling entertainment books to housewives and all the way to selling enterprise level technology to Fortune 500 companies. So he's worked for small businesses of 25 employees up to 10,000. He's sold to just about every vertical you can think of. Over a decade ago, he began a journey in the marketing world. And so now he consults businesses on digital marketing. And so through all of this, he's come to the conclusion that we're now at an all-time low in the sales world in terms of talent acquisition and retention. I want to talk about that, Kak. And that corporations don't have a clear understanding of salespeople, what they should be doing, and what they have already on their staffs. So please welcome Kak Varley. Kak, thanks for making it here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Let's get started right away on what you're talking about in terms of how corporations don't have a clear understanding of their salespeople and what they have and what they should have.
Well, let's kind of start on a layered approach here, because you know how this goes, right? You got to peel back the onion.
Sure.
So let's start with what I would consider to be a global inherent issue that's been going on probably since the inception of sales, right? Back in the days when people used to sell door to door. There's a reputation problem, right?
Yep.
That has never seemed to go away when it comes to the reputation of a salesperson or the sales game, if you will, right?
Yep.
It started many years ago, and now, of course, you go through and there's movies about this, Glengarry Glen Ross. You get your Boiler Room, and that doesn't help anything, right? They're great movies, don't get me wrong, and everybody's worked in those situations at one point or another in their lives. But on the whole, people that don't understand sales look at that and they go, oh, well, salespeople, I don't really want to talk to one of those guys, or one of those gals.
I started my career in marketing research and then product management, and people saying, Mark, you're really good in front of customers. You need to go into sales. And it was that part of my career was like a 15-year cage match of me saying, no, I don't want to be a salesperson. And I finally lost and I had to, go into sales. I did great. But I didn't want to think of myself as a salesperson, because who wants to think of themselves as a salesperson?
Right. And it's interesting because I have a similar story to that, where I used to work as a warehouse grunt for a record store wholesaler in town. Okay.
Yeah.
I just had long hair, holey jeans, and all I was doing was basically stocking CDs, records, stuff like that, and then pulling them as well for people that were ordering these things, right? Your typical warehouse stuff. And I remember there was a group of salespeople. There was three guys, and the manager there came to me and said, "Hey, Mike is leaving, and would you be interested in doing sales?" And I looked at him like, really? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, do you think I could actually do it? Because I didn't know anything about sales at the time, literally.
Sure.
And he goes, and he looked me dead straight in the eye and he goes, oh yeah, you could do it. And as the story goes, I ended up getting that job, and I ended up outselling the other two guys, and they weren't so pleased with me. But in any case, that kind of kicked off my sales career, as it were.
Yeah. Dragging, kicking, and screaming into the career. Isn't that funny?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you look back in those days, and I think what you're exemplifying is that there's a lot of mystery around the sales world, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's misrepresentation. Sometimes it's, oh my God, I couldn't ever imagine doing that, being in front of people, presenting, things of that nature.
Yeah, and you and I met, and I can't imagine you not being comfortable with that at this point, right? Because you're distinctly comfortable with it. Let's get back to what you were saying about companies not realizing what it takes, what they should be looking for in sales, and what you mean by that.
Well, there's some inherent issues there too, is what I see. First and foremost, generally speaking, corporations don't seem to have an understanding of what salespeople really want. What is their intention? And the way I like to describe, which sounds very almost brutal, but very true, is they're looking at making money. What they're concerned with is what goes in their wallet.
Yeah.
That is a true tried and true salesperson. Okay. And I think that as you get into these situations where, for instance, you'll get a corporation and then they'll hire a recruiting company, right? And the recruiting company jots down a few notes on what's required, which is basically probably a job posting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go out there and they do the sort of checklist method of trying to find a salesperson. Oh, you need to have a college, you need this much experience, you need this, you need that, and you need that. None of the questions, not a single bit of those questions, or I'll say 80% of them, to be fair, have anything to do with making money when they're going out to recruit, right?
Yeah.
So right then and there, you can see that they don't understand the salesperson and the value system of a salesperson. Then you have oftentimes the recruiters, even if they're internal to a corporation, sometimes don't know the value of their own company and what they bring to a salesperson or what they bring to the marketplace. There's been many discussions, and I don't know, I haven't talked about this before with you, but I do interviews all the time to get it to understand what is going on out there. And a lot of times the recruiters don't understand the value of what they even offer as a company.
Yeah, that's now you're in my wheelhouse on not understanding your value and not understanding what you do differently.
Right.
And
so sometimes I think what happens, Mark, is they get to a point of not really understanding their value, and their immediate thought is to hire a salesperson or salespeople. They're like, we'll fix this problem. We'll just hire salespeople. Right? But then you got to ask yourself, well, what if the company doesn't have any value? Then what is the salesperson going to sell? Because again, the salesperson needs and wants to make money.
Yeah. I just want to stop at that one. The sales want to make money, because I think it's a little bit of a myth that salespeople are coin operated.
That's correct.
Certainly, right? They are there for a job and to make money, but they want a meaningful job. They want a job where they feel good about what they do.
Right.
And then they want to be paid for doing right and doing well. But they will figure out what behaviors get paid the most and do that. So they will do what you pay them to do, whether that's what you really want them to do or not. There's a very small number of antisocial people who are in sales who are just there to shove whatever they can down a customer's throat. And that's not the real salespeople, especially not in a higher level professional sales. So when we say they want to make money, I don't want that. Are you okay with me saying I don't want that to be misconstrued as saying salespeople are coin operated?
You're exactly right, and I don't want to present that either, because you're absolutely right. They aren't coin operated. But what I was speaking of is just more of the intention. Like, to answer the question why does a salesperson even exist if he's going to join a company, or he or she is going to join a company, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm really talking about. But you're absolutely right. They are not core operated. They will look at everything else. Culture is very important to everybody. It's not just salespeople. I think culture is an incredible importance,
Yeah.
right? Because, you can make, to your point, you can make, six figures, mid six figures, something like that in a sales job. And if you don't like the business or the people you're working with, I still don't think you'd stick around.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Um, I I really harp on hiring a sales role for their intention to really help a customer make better decisions and to do well by your customer. I want salespeople that want to help customers buy,
Hmm.
not ones who want to manipulate a customer into buying.
Right, and then you're getting into the space that I love, which is called the ethics piece of this, right?
Sure.
Because I think the best salespeople are the ones that are most ethical.
I think they're the most ethical. I also think that it kind of goes hand in hand with the ones who ask the best questions, the ones who are the best listeners. And if there's two salespeople selling an identical product, which again, that's hypothetical. I don't think there's any such thing as two identical products. But if you set up a hypothetical where they're selling two salespeople selling an identical product, best listener wins.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
one the one who listens and can turn their product most closely into what the customer wants to buy is the one that wins,
Right.
because the customer finds more value in that and can see themselves being a successful purchaser and a successful owner of whatever that is, or user of whatever that product or service is, because the salesperson helped align what the customer wants to buy, the customer's outcomes, to their solution.
Right.
And that is the art of selling. It's not persuasion, it is aligning and
That's
discovery.
exactly it. That's exactly it. Remember when we talked about this? We talked about how some of the best salespeople, because you can go through, personality tests. You can go through, a million books on what makes a great salesperson, right, and all this. But remember what we talked about is this concept of matching,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you're getting into right there when you say that. And the best salespeople in this whole 25 years I've ever seen are the ones that match themselves with the client.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of give our audience the background. We had this conversation over a glass of something brown and painful, I think it was, right? And the idea was, where they're talking about, is there a type of person who's successful at sales, and are they the lone wolf, are they the challenger, are they the good old boy, are they the relationship dude or woman? And we said no. I said, and you agreed with me, that the ultimate person isn't one of those personality types, it's the chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
It's the person who matches and aligns how the customer would like to interact.
Right.
And
That's
so
right.
that's what. So just I'm expanding what we agreed on, just because our listeners didn't have the perspective of that conversation, or
Right. Right.
that glass of whiskey.
Good catch.
So you also consult with your folks, and let me break right now, and I'd like you to give our listeners how to get a hold of you, like your contact information that you'd like to. So if people want to get a hold of you, they can. We'll ask it at the end too, but I don't want them to wait all the way to the end.
Okay, great. So my name is Kak Varley. You can find me on kakvarley.com. So it's KAK, V as in Victor, ARLEY.com.
Great.
And all my information is right there for you. I'm very transparent. My phone number is there. My email is there.
Great. And tell people what you do and how you help them and where you specialize. We said that in your introduction. You help especially people understand digital marketing, but tell us all what you do.
So as essentially an agency, I help people with digital marketing across the board. It could be anything from web design, advertising online, social media management, and so on, so on, so on. And then I also help people on a sales level. I consult them on, basically how to, the right ways to look for a salesperson, what to expect when looking for a salesperson. And I help people on the sales side too, in terms of guiding them through interview processes. I do LinkedIn profiles as well, because I don't know, I'm quite sure Mark, that LinkedIn is a great lead source for people that are looking for a job, because in the LinkedIn world, it operates much like any other search engine, where it's keyword driven.
Yep.
So as these recruiters are looking for keywords, you want to be in their searches.
Yep.
And so I guide people on their LinkedIn profiles to get that all squared away in alignment of what they want to do, so that it can get leads from recruiters and companies looking for people.
Very cool. So that's a really great segue into how people should be selling now. As we're talking, if you're listening to this much later, we are right in the meat of the COVID shutdown. And so we're talking, and the whole world is talking about what's changed, how sales has changed, what's changed in your business, and that digital marketing piece, and marketing vertically and selling virtually has suddenly become more important. So tell us more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's changed and what stayed the same.
Well, yeah, in terms of what stayed the same, sales is sales. There is no, as I like to say, there is no silver bullet, right, when it comes to sales.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you get caught up in these. Oh well, if we just do this, everything will work out. I like to look at sales more in a portfolio.
I'm gonna interrupt,
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
I completely agree. There's a whole school of sales, and the further you get away from sales, an actual sales role, the more powerful this idea becomes. The people in sales don't like it, but if you get out to marketing and then executives, people start to buy into this myth more and more, and that is there's such a thing as a magic pitch.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And it is a sweet siren song, man. If we just develop in marketing, if we can just get the right pitch with the right value proposition, the streets will be paved with gold. And so I'm sorry to interrupt you in your flow, but what you said is exactly true, and I wanted to amplify on that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because you have a situation that there is no silver bullet, and there's a lot that salespeople have to do, and even more so now. So we can get into what's changed too. Let's stick with what has always been, which is there's a lot that a salesperson has to do. It's not just a pitch. It's not just a 30-second commercial. It's not just this. It's not just, and you're going to just go down the line. Actually, you kind of need all of it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to know the product. The best salespeople I've seen too are usually know the product really well. They don't just go off of messaging. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The best salespeople I know are very behavioral driven. They understand personality traits of the customers that they're dealing with, right? So they can communicate better. I've seen that go down as from, again, some of the best salespeople. But what has changed is now you have all this new tool set, which is called the digital world, right? And there's what I would call growth marketing methods that can be used from a salesperson's perspective to number one, get in front of customers, acquisition, if you will, and to retain customers, right? And again, it's not a silver bullet. It's not, hey, just move everything that you've done for the last whatever hundreds of years, and now we're just going to go the direction of digital marketing, with sales. No, it's an add-on.
Yeah.
It's part of the portfolio.
Yeah.
And you're missing out if you're not a part of it. Okay. But it doesn't also mean that you're going to be the best of the best of the best just because you've now put all your eggs in one basket into digital marketing.
Yeah, I think the digital marketing is how, and it's how to connect to people. But two of the things you said, one, know your product, and by
Well,
really
know your
know,
product and know your people. That's
yeah,
basically two things I said.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, you said know the product and being able to behavior match and mirror, but knowing your product is not knowing the speeds and feeds, the features and that stuff. Knowing
right,
your product is really knowing how to apply your product's capabilities to your customers' gaps, what
right,
they need. Being able to describe your product in customer language. And in my book, I call that customer outcomes. What are the customers' outcomes? They don't buy your product, they don't buy your service, they don't buy your software, they buy their own outcomes. And so if you can turn your product and describe and articulate your product into the need for their outcomes, that's knowing your product.
right.
It's not just being able to recite specs. That's kid stuff. Being able to know your product means know your product from your customers through your customers' eyes.
Well, if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective, what you're really getting into is you need to be able to answer the question why.
Yeah,
Because we can talk about the how all day long and the what, of course, which is the speeds and feeds, right?
yeah,
But we have to be, as salespeople, to answer the question why. Why are we in your office, Mr. Customer?
yeah,
Right?
absolutely. What is this going to do for you? And that kind of goes back to what we said earlier. The one who best articulates and best listens and best matches and aligns what they are offering to the customer's value gaps or their needs um, wins. And so the second thing you said was the person. One of the key skills or key characteristics is being able to match behavior and match your customer and make them feel comfortable that you get them. And
Yeah. You want a great example of that? I used to work for a big hardware software company, and it was huge. I mean, we're talking when I started with them, there was probably 500 people. By the time I left, it was 5,000 people, right? And a majority of those people, it was a sales organization. Okay. And I always found it fascinating because you might get a rep that has now gained a bunch of customers, right? A client base, if you will. And then that person leaves. And then the question becomes, where do those clients go? And and time again, I have seen the most ridiculous ways of figuring out where clients should go. From, oh, well, they spend this amount. Now I'm just going to send them to George because he does that amount of business or he needs that to fill his gap or whatever. I've only seen it a few times, a handful of times, where a manager or a director has sat down and said, hey, look, tell me before the rep left, tell me about your client's personality, and then they match that to the reps that would fit that personality best. And I can tell you that in those situations, retention was far better than any other process.
yeah, well, and it makes sense when you think of it after the fact, but nobody's thought to do that. Um,
Right.
and one of the other things that I'm kind of keen on, and it's kind of one of my rants lately, is that in a lot of organizations, there's a whole host of roles besides sales that are intimately in contact with your customer. And we tell them, please don't act like salespeople. Please just do your job. Please just stay in your lane. Don't try to discover any value. Don't discover any gaps. Just do your installation, do your tech support, do your project management, do your customer success, and don't act like a salesperson. And um, I always say that's, as a company, you've got a whole bunch of forward observers, each with a completely different, unique perspective on the customer. And as a company, if you fail to take advantage of all those different perspectives and vantage points, you're silly. But now when you add in the idea of now the salesperson's leaving, but we have an entire rest of the team, and we can show the customer a whole lot of stability rather than a whole lot of interruption. That's one more reason to do that, right?
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because I think that the lines are blurring. Well, let's start with this. I remember one time, very long time ago, probably 20 years ago, my sister-in-law, who didn't know I did sales at the time. I was just starting to date my ex-wife at the time, and she said something snarky about salespeople. Salespeople! I don't want to deal with those guys, something like that. And I just laughed because I've been through sales for so long. I got such a thick skin anymore. It doesn't even bother me anymore. But I just started laughing. I go, well, I'm a sales guy. And I said, and she kind of felt bad. I said, hey, don't feel bad, but let's talk about this for a second. Let's take this as an example. You just told me a story only about 20 minutes ago, where you wanted to go buy something, and you had to talk to Steve, your husband, about it, right? And you remember telling that story and how you kind of pitched it to him and this and that. And you go, yeah. I go, you did sales. Everybody does sales.
Yeah.
My kids do sales on me every day. We all do sales. Every single one of us does sales, right? But then we have the lines are blurring in a corporate sense, right? I see salespeople now that are, if you really look at it, they're not just doing sales. They're doing customer service. They're doing product management, product marketing sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and then this concept, I think what my prediction has been for a number of years now, that sales and marketing will no longer, or will eventually no longer be a separate entities. Because back in the day, it was marketing did their thing, sales did their thing, and I've seen this in companies that I work for, where those two organizations just bicker back and forth and point fingers at each other, right?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't give me leads.
Range war.
Well, I got you leads. What'd you do with them? I mean, and it's just constant back and forth, but they're not working together. Yeah. So I had this concept I called sarketing, where it's sales and marketing, right? Because I think in this world today, the lines are blurring, and they have to blur because everybody needs to be involved at this point.
Yeah.
Even all the way up to the CEO. In fact, when you look at the fact that you and I are in this C-suite network, right? We get in these meetings, and the reality is, even, they're in this, these people are in the sales world too, right?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So I think when you talk about sales, just saying that you have a sales department is already kind of I don't know how to put it, but not a good depiction of things, because really everybody in the company needs to sell at some point. And by the way, like you said, somebody might have a different viewpoint or an idea that could be very valuable to the rest of the company. And it doesn't matter if you're sitting in the sales seat or if you're sitting in somewhere else in an administrative role.
Yeah, we have a whole half-hour podcast where you and I talk about roles and what they are and what they should be and what they shouldn't be. that's a whole nother, that's a half-hour discussion, right, just to dip our toe into that.
Right.
So in this period of challenge with pandemic, we kind of said that the things that are important, the things that were always important are still important. Some of them have shifted in importance. I don't think there's anything new. I think some of the things that were on the back burner moved to the front burner, and some of the things that, on the front moved to the back. But there's nothing new on the stove. It's all stuff you knew you had to do. You had to connect with your customers. You have to be empathetic. Right now, it's more important than ever just to contact people and say, how you doing? How can I help? What can I do? And that contact with empathy without intention of moving a sales forward or conspicuously moving a sales forward, that's something you always really needed to do. But now, if you don't, you're failing. So showing empathy, connecting, making sure that you stay in front of people and using the tools to be connected, even if you can't be knee to knee, do it virtually. I think all those things are still in the mix, and it's not anything new in the mix. It's just become really important, and the margin for error on some of these things is smaller.
Yeah, if you go on my website, in the very first two lines, it says humans want to connect. And so to your point, what a better time now to connect with your clients. I don't, you can be in your own house all you want, but people, right now probably need to have a discussion, probably need to, talk with somebody more than anything. And you don't need to sell anything at that point. You just need to be there for people. I think I'm seeing a lot because again, I'm in the digital marketing space. So I'm heavily involved with the social media aspect of this. And I see a lot of my friends who are, the extroverts, that are really having a difficult time right now because they have no way of getting out there and
I'm kind of
being with
struggling
people.
a little bit. Most of my business is nationwide, and I communicate mostly virtually: email, voicemail, Zoom, phone calls. But I still, I work from the home office, and I have to get out like a couple, 3 times a week. Just go to a grocery store and wander up and down the aisles and pick up one thing if I need something. And even though I treat the store as my get out of the house and I can't do that anymore.
Right.
My wife is in healthcare. And so I can't expose myself to anything that she's going to be bringing into a hospital. And she has to be really careful of not bringing anything home to me. So we are hyper careful now. And I no longer have that flexibility. And it's hard. It's hard for me to say, I can't get up. Maybe I can go out and walk out in the desert.
Right.
But I sure can't go someplace where there are people anymore.
Right. Right. This is true. And well, we all got to do it, and hopefully we are doing it. And the more we, it's funny. I think as an entire country, I think we're pulling together more than we have been for a very long time, even though that we're separated.
Yeah.
We're pulling together, right?
Yep. The things that are most important, we're doing them using different tools, but we've realized how important it is, and I think it's kind of cool to see. And Kak, it has been great. Time has just flown by. I really appreciate your time, and I think we need to have a follow-up discussion to fill in some of the gaps issues that we raised but never really discussed.
Right. Hey, can I give an offer to your
Yes, please do.
listeners? Yeah. My company is actually putting together a product that is it's basically a social media calendar that basically does all the thinking for you and combines the calendar with a proven social media strategy that we've been using for like a decade or so now. Okay. And so what I want to offer your listeners is this, and it's not out yet, but when it does come out, I want to make sure that I get your listeners this product. It'll be for the special price for your listeners will be $41. Okay. And the way to get this product is to go to our website, which is called 411. And that's basically the word for the number one and the word one. So FOUR, the number one, ONE.com. They can sign up there, and as soon as we have launched a product, we'll make sure that they're communicated with, and we'll get them that.
Oh, that's great, Kak. Thank you. So $41 at 411. Great.
There you go. And
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah,
And
the whole concept of the product is just to take it a little bit step further. Is to help people bring value to the social media world, and at the same time make it easy for them because we all can get on social media and do our things, but how do we bring value so that you can grow your audience and possibly even make sales?
Yep. And I will offer anybody that does that, if you've talked to them and they don't understand how their value has changed in all of this. Every company's value has changed because of the pandemic. Some have gone up, some have gone down, some are just plain different. If you find somebody that is not communicating their current value and they're communicating what their value used to be, bring me in and I'd be happy to help have a discussion so that we kind of get that value and all of their value propositions updated. I'm happy to throw that in with anybody that goes in and connects with you on your service.
Excellent.
Cool. That'll give us a chance to work together more.
Yes, I would love that.
Cool. All right, Kak, one more time, why don't you go ahead and give your coordinates besides 411?
It is Kak Varley, Kak, V as in Victor, ARLEY.com.
Great, Kak. This has been a great conversation, and I hope listeners, I hope you've gotten as much out of it and as I have, as we've, I feel like I've learned from Kak. So I'm a better person for having hung out with you for half an hour.
Oh, shucks.
So everybody, thanks for tuning into the ValueClarity podcast. And remember that customer value is in the customer's head, which means that your success lies all in your customer's mind. Thanks and have a great day.
Well, it ain't easy, cause value's in your buyer's brain. If you're selling on only your features, you're gonna drive both of you insane. And if you ignore your customers' outcomes, you're bound to be paying your dues, cause you'll be singing those old don't know value blues.